got back from my homeland, Belize. I grew up there in the 1980s, a beautiful little country in Central America, formerly known as British Honduras until its independence in 1981. Back then, Belize wasn't wealthy by any means. It had visible poverty, poor infrastructure, and population still adjusting to its independence. But it was ours. It was vibrant, it was rich in culture, and naturally stunning. Fast forward to 2025, and Belize, like many other so-called affordable destinations, is becoming alarmingly expensive, not just for tourists, but for people who live there. Belize used to be known as a paradise. And when I say those prices have skyrocketed, they have. We're not talking about the usual bump. We're talking 300% increase in some areas with basic items, such as water.
Here's how much we spent in a day in San Pedro, Belize, and this is one of the most expensive countries in Central America and one of the most expensive islands, so let's see how spenny it really is. We started the day with a couple of cheeky free coffees from the hostel and then we headed out. We went and hired a golf buggy, which is the main mode of transport on the island. This cost us 90 Belize dollars. All you need is a valid driving license. We headed to Secret Beach, and as you can see, the weather was not on our side, but we got our first bit of local food. The chicken stew was $20 and Gaz's burrito was $30, so with drinks and service the full bill was $61.90. Later on we headed out to one of the bars on the pier for happy hour and got ourselves 2 rum and cokes for $4 per drink and then 2 beers for $6 per drink, leaving the total bill at $20. We then headed to the truck stop, which is like an outdoor food market for dinner. I finished the night with some tacos at $28 and Gaz got himself a delicious pizza for $30. This leaves our grand total as a couple at 230 Belize dollars or $115 per person. That's without accommodation.
More than $4 or $5 a bottle in some of the tourist destination areas, like the Keys. And that brings me to the average monthly income in Belize, which is about $750 US, far below what is necessary to live down there and have a stable living. You've got imported products that dominate the shelves because there's very little domestic manufacturing. That laundry detergent, it's probably from the US or Mexico, and you're paying import taxes on top of that. Tourism has made it unlivable for the locals when you go to the Keys. And Burgess Key, Key Cocker, you'll notice something quickly. The people who can afford to stay eat well, they party on the beach, but they're mostly Americans, Europeans, Canadians. They're not Belizeans. Locals can't afford to live in their own country anymore. Even small restaurant meals are priced for outsiders. A burger and fries might be 25 US. That's outrageous for people who live in Belize. Minimum wage in Belize is currently 5 Belize dollars per hour. That's only 250 US.
Belize have a population of about 400,000 people and more than half of them live under poverty. So walk around the streets of Belmopan and Belize City and just pay attention to the vehicles we used to drive around. I see brand new Toyota Land Cruisers, brand new Lexus LX 570s, and more than one of them too. What really opened my eye that when I'm in the drive around and I see one brand new Cadillac Escalade, like I swear this thing is no older than 2 years old. Asian community in Belize very wealthy as well. You just see supermarkets just they pop up here, there, and everywhere. As to when they get a capital for building there, that's the one next question.
So who's winning? Well, I say wealthy foreigners, as they always do. They're buying up all the land, they're building condos, and pricing people out who's lived there for generations. Talk about the environmental collapse. That's a huge part of this price tag. When I was younger, the waters near my house, my father's house, were cleaner. Maybe not crystal blue like some of the private islands, but definitely not murky either, or green like they are now today. You'll see floating plastic, beer bottles, trash bobbing along the shoreline. The sea isn't changing color, it's suffocating. One of the main culprits, and I assume could be, is dredging. Dredging actually does have a process where it scoops the sediment from the bottom of the water, and this deepens or reshapes the waterways. And it usually is to build marinas, beachfront property, or docks. It may seem harmless, but dredging destroys coral reefs, clouds the water with sediment, and smothers the marine habitats. In Belize, illegal or unregulated dredging has been a major environmental concern as you know, sediment from the dredging can travel for miles, damaging the Mesoamerican barrier reef, our second largest reef system in the world aside from Australia. I don't think people realize that. Belize at one time used to be the #1 when it comes to living beautiful barrier reef. And yes, there was a scandal years ago where part of the reef, I vaguely remember this, but it was actually blown up to build a cruise ship port. The developers were fined, but not truly held accountable. So you can fact check this. The environmental penalties are often minor compared to the profits that were made by these bougie elite people that just move in and do whatever the hell they want. Tourism may be Belize's top source of revenue, and it's necessary, but it's also destroying the very thing that draws people there, the land, the sea. Also something that I've noticed when I was down there, the sargassum. If you've been to Belize or anywhere in the Caribbean lately, I'm talking about from Mexico, Florida, all the coastal areas, you've probably noticed mounds of brown, stringy seaweed piled on the shores or floating in the water. Locals, you know, are used to it and just have adapted, but it's no joke. So sargassum is a type of seaweed that naturally grows in the Sargasso Sea in the Atlantic Ocean. For centuries, it was part of a healthy marine ecosystem, but in the last 10 to 15 years, it has exploded into massive, rotting, stinking blooms that wash up on the beaches across the Caribbean, Central America, and West Africa. It's even in Florida. But where is it coming from? Scientists believe that the overgrowth is fueled by excess nutrients dumped into the ocean from fertilizers, sewage, especially from the Amazon River and West Africa. That's what scientists are saying. They're also saying, and you much expect this, rising ocean temperatures, which create the ideal breeding condition, changing wind and current patterns linked to climate change. You knew that word was coming. But once sargassum reaches the shore, it piles up in this thick, matted thing that releases toxic hydrogen sulfide gas, which smells like rotten eggs. And prolonged exposure can cause headaches, nausea, respiratory issues, and places like Belize, it's making certain beaches nearly unusable. Now, between 2011 and 2023, sargassum blooms in the Caribbean increased by more than 500%, according to researchers from the University of South Florida. This is having a huge impact on tourism, the environment, and all of it. Beachfront hotels and resorts can now spend thousands of dollars trying to clean up the sargassum daily. But the decaying seaweed kills coral reefs, seagrass beds, and marine life by blocking sunlight and lowering oxygen levels. Now, there's a lot of fishermen in Belize, and they're struggling too with the sargassum because it clogs boat engines and traps gear. And who gets hit the hardest? You guessed it. Local communities who rely on fishing and small-scale tourism to survive. So who really owns Belize now? Let's not sugarcoat it. In many ways, Belize is becoming a playground for the ultra-wealthy. From resorts that fence off beaches to expats who buy land for vacation rentals. The land itself is being bought up piece by piece, especially the pristine, coveted land, not the mainland. Many Belizeans inherit their homes, thankfully, which is likely the only way they can afford to even stay in their own country. But renting or buying property is now nearly impossible for the average worker. I'm sure many of them pool their money together and buy things, but property prices in Ambergris Caye or San Pedro, for example, have jumped over 300% in the last decade. I've seen this firsthand. A property that would be $20,000 US can now go for $100,000 or $250,000, and the prices are just going up, and it's crazy. It's set for digital nomads, remote workers, or investors, private equity. Belize isn't alone here. Here are 4 other expensive regular people can't go anymore because it's just becoming too expensive. Belize is just one of many formerly affordable destinations that are now luxury only. A few more. Iceland. Iceland used to be a one-stop budget shop for nature lovers. Now, a burger and fries can run you $25. Hotel prices 200 and up a night, maybe even more. I'm talking about the cheap ones. The Maldives, gorgeous, yes, but the average overwater bungalow starts at 600 per night, not including flights or food. Then you have Switzerland. You'll need deep pockets to go there. A basic meal can cost $40 to $50. Dubai is well known, but it's just because of its glitzy building and everything is imported there. And it's one of these destinations where if you saw how the poor lived, you wouldn't want to go there. Dubai is expensive fantasy. It's like a fantasy world with one of the highest costs of living globally. So the conclusion is that beauty isn't free anymore. It's being sold off. Places like Belize, like my home country, used to be simple, beautiful, accessible, not just to tourists, but to the locals who loved and lived off the land. Tourism can bring opportunity, guys, but when left unchecked, it can also bring inequality, pollution, and displacement. And if we don't talk about this now, more places like Belize will become exclusive playgrounds, not shared homes. I don't know what to tell you guys, but I hope you check this out. When I saw some of the costs of the islands being $11,000 for 3 days, I literally said to myself, look around, soak it in, and just enjoy, because this may be the last you'll see of your country being the way it used to be. Anyways, have a great day and think for yourself.